tuned back in, and I think that's a smart decision because I'm sitting here with Scott Stratten, who had a brilliant speech, but we'll get back to later on. B2B Marketing Forum. Today's the topic, engaging with your customer. Engagement. Right now there's a break, so people are walking. You may hear sounds from the kitchen. Don't worry, because we will be able to focus, myself and you and Scott, on the topic. You had a keynote speech, Scott. Mm-hmm. You had a little interaction, like a mini workshop just now. Yeah. People who don't know you, maybe you can say in one sentence who you are and what is your message?
Scott Stratten. I run UnMarketing, call myself the Unpresident of UnMarketing, or the Chief Awesome Officer. And everything's about stop marketing, start engaging. If you believe business is built on relationships, make building them your business.
Okay. And you had an interactive session. What were the kind of questions some of the other CMOs had that they share with you?
Well, it's one of the things about that type of smaller group where you can break into, instead of a keynote where they can get the real questions down, you don't want to ask in front of everybody else. It's things like, how do we scale social media? Can you scale conversations? What happens if your audience is made up of people who speak 10 languages? Where I have a company in England and in Amsterdam and in Japan. Do we do individual pages for each one, or do you do one and force everybody to speak one language? So it's some really specific stuff that you don't always see, in the day-to-day talk about social media. So I really liked it. I hope they did too.
So before we go into solutions and some of your thoughts,
right?
You know what we liked, and I've seen myself, I've overheard because I stepped into your speech about the Red Cross, but maybe it's nice to hear a horror story. We love horror stories. So before we go into solutions and ideas and tips, we save it for later.
Right.
Share us a horror story.
Well, we can. A good one is that kind of the Red Cross horror story, or the which turned out to be a good one. So it could be the Red Cross, which is just a mistweet, which a term that never existed, a few years ago. Where the problem with social media is it's so instant, and that a mistake is seen by many people, including myself, who then take screenshots and put it in books and in talks. Where something like the American Red Cross, the girl who ran the account tweeted out something about they were getting drunk at the time, when in reality she wanted to tweet it under her personal account, but instead her app allowed her to tweet between two accounts.
She switched over.
Picked the wrong one. And so she tweeted under the American Red Cross, one of the most recognizable brands in the world, that they were getting drunk.
Wow. Oops.
Oops. And so, how do you react to that? How do you do that? So, to delete it and hope nobody sees it, which never happens. Because people like me are sitting there hoping screw-ups happen.
And then it became worse, right? What happened then?
Well, it really started going fast, but then they fixed it by an hour later saying, the Red Cross, we've taken away the keys. We're sober. We've taken away the keys, but rest assured, the Red Cross isn't drunk. And it was a really great tweet where they played with it. Yeah. Instead of being serious, deleting it and firing the person and doing a press conference, they actually made the recovery better than the screw up, which in social media gives you a really great opportunity. If you screw up, you can fix it and actually make yourself look better because you're already in the spotlight and people are waiting to see what you'll do.
So if people adopt this kind of thinking and engaging with the customer and focus more on relationships as opposed to transactions, do you think that companies also take these kind of scenarios into account? What if something goes wrong horribly?
Yeah, and there's a lot of paranoia. It doesn't help by people like me always talking about the bad stories, but there's this social paranoia that happens. But what can happen, and a fascinating thing that can happen, especially on Facebook, where you'll have these brand defenders, with your most loyal customers, your most diehard customers, and they'll actually step up and defend the brand about something when you're not there. It's a fascinating thing where...
so customers are defending and say, hey, don't say anything about my brand.
Yeah, well, they'll say something like the example like Cirque du Soleil, one of my favorite brands in the world. They're great at social. Yeah. But if somebody says something bad about one of their shows, people get offended. I get offended if you say you don't like a show. I'll be like, did you not see this or this or this? Wow. So what happens is they build up the benefit of the brand doubt. When you get to know your audience and they feel like you're listening, now I've got ownership to me in that brand and defending them. So it's actually a fascinating thing you never really saw happen before. So you actually don't have to step in. And customers can say stuff to other customers that you wish you could say, but you can never say, publicly to them. So it's actually a very cool phenomenon that happens.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Nice example. Yeah. This morning I spoke to Lisa Arthur, CMO of Primo, who said, as a CMO, you have to adopt technology if you don't do it, if you don't team up with the CIO,
Right.
then in a few years from now, you'll become obsolete. The new CMO has to apply technology because the creative world won't save you anymore in the future.
Right.
Now, your message about engaging, talk to your customer. What are the best steps you think if you are from the old world and you want to take this journey? You believe into Lisa Arthur's message, you believe in your message and engaging. You don't have the experience. You know a lot of things can go wrong, and they will go wrong, of course.
Yeah.
What are the steps? How do you start this journey?
Well, I think one of the things, especially CMOs have to realize, is that we have to stop trying to own the conversation. That one of our jobs in the marketing industry, especially when we're at the top of the chain, is like we need to control the brand.
Sorry about the
conversation.
kitchen noises.
It's authentic. So the CMO's got to look at things like, we got the press releases, we got the journalists, we got all this stuff. We don't control the conversation anymore. You have to admit to that fact first, that we actually never had control of the conversation. We just had control of where the press releaes went. We never controlled it. But now you have to realize that marketing and engaging is not the same thing. That engaging is not marketing's job. It's a company job. It goes across every platform. Customer service, human resources, marketing, sales, everything. Every silo is accounted for, because customers in social don't see silos. They see.
But how many companies grasp this? It's a company's job.
They don't. And that's where I think we're going now. Is the past couple of years has been, how does marketing use social media? How do we social media sell? And realizing conversations are companies, right? It's company-wide. And that's where the big, and CMOs don't want to give it up, and rightfully so. We all have our own territories in companies, and we don't want to give it up because that could be budgets, that could be headcount, it could be anything like that. But social has to go across the board. If you're going to open something like a Facebook or Twitter account, you've got to have somebody there who can access all these different departments and get answers, and get momentum, and get conversations going. You need that social controller, like an air traffic controller, where they can pick and whirl and help it out. So that means the CMO, the CIO, the CFO, the CEO, they all are responsible for social. And if they don't buy in, you'll have an uphill battle the rest of your career there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to take a lot of investment to people from the operations and service.
And nobody wants to give up
people.
budget. Nobody wants to give up budget or time, and it won't work. But the companies who've done it right have done it. And they each place will put some resources into it, and they'll realize it's best for all of us. We'll reduce calls to our call center. We'll reduce returns of a product that's a customer type of product, or even B2B. Is reduce returns, reduce complaints. That's got to be good for business.
And this customer DNA that a company needs to feel.
Right.
Can you give an example of a company that said, well, if there's any company that really puts a customer central, who would it be?
Well, you got some examples from either across the pond over where we have something like Zappos or Cirque du Soleil, which they're always engaging. They're always, you feel like you're important. Most companies say the customer's number one, but you never feel it. You never feel it when you talk to them. And that's the difference, where Cirque du Soleil was the first brand that ever actually talked to me on Twitter. Where I went there and I actually said something about Cirque du Soleil in general. I said, Cirque is wonderful. Didn't say anything to them, and they wrote back and said, thanks, we like us too, in like half an hour. And I literally had tingles. I'm like, they talked to me. And that's a wonderful way to do it. So looking at their examples are pretty sweet in what they can do.
How long do you think we will get these examples in the B2B space?
Well, I think there's some now. I just think that to be great at social and B2B, you only have to be average because everybody else sucks. So now's the time. Now's the time to jump in. And there are examples, but they're very pocketed.
Yeah.
It's just B2B is still P2P. It's still person to person.
Yeah.
And there's ways to do it, and you just got to get the buy-in. That's the hardest thing to do.
What do you think you personally will be surprised most if we would see you next year in Amsterdam, and you would sit here? What do you think you'll be surprised with what's coming the next 12 months?
I would be surprised if if B2B got better at social. I think it's almost going to stay the same, and that's sad. And it's an opportunity. It's a great opportunity, and sad. I think that we're using QR codes wrong. We're using horribly thing, and we always talk about augmented reality. If we really want to sound techie, we can start throwing those things out there, and none of them make any sense if you're not using them right. And I would be surprised if we were doing social right, which is a very pessimistic thing to say, and it's a very honest thing to say. That I don't. I think we are creatures of habit, especially in marketing. We will stick to direct mail, We'll stick to email marketing. We'll stick to TV advertising.
And cold calling.
Yeah, and cold calling, no matter how many people we piss off, no matter how low the numbers drop, let's get better at something that's not working, right? And that's a problem. And that's why I started on marketing in the first place, was people cold calling. Like, it's hypocritical. You hate getting cold calls, but you want to do it for your business. We're being hypocrites. There's new ways. That's why people don't sell vacuums at door to door anymore, right? There's better ways to do it.
I've heard at the Britannica Encyclopedia, they just last week they stopped selling door to door. Wow, it's 2012.
Yeah, well, at least they're not 23 years behind in what they're doing, right? Don't be that.
Yeah.
Don't be the one who obviously is 15 years late to stopping what they should be doing in the first place. The funniest thing that they said was, well, the internet had no effect on that decision. Are you kidding me? It's called Wikipedia. That's what it is.
So this is the last thing, and then there are some live questions.
Sure.
UnMarketing was your book.
Yeah.
You spoke about it. You referred to it. You have a new book coming up.
Yep. It's going to come out in the fall. It's actually 2 books in one. The front cover is called The Book of Business Awesome. So it's all stories of great stuff in business.
Yeah.
Flip it upside down, and the other side says The Book of Business Unawesome. It's all the screw-ups and train wrecks. So it reads both ways, and a little good, little bad, but it's really about, we spread things that are awesome, we share awesome experiences, and we share unawesome experiences, and how it worked, and how you recover, and how you do great stuff.
Nice. I hope the book is awesome.
Thanks.
Scott.
Thanks, man.
Ja, thank you as well.
You're welcome.
En nu kunt u... Okay, I don't have the tendency to switch into Dutch. It's crazy. I got a little distracted by the kitchen. It's always the fault of the kitchen. If you have a question to Scott, sitting next to me in the next few minutes, hashtag CMO Talks, and you can ask a question. And I actually already got a few.
Good.
I heard some beeps. This is a funny one. But what if cold calling works?
What if cold calling works? That's a great question. And you know what? Anything can work. And what does work mean? I could punch everybody in this room right now in the face. Yeah. One of you will buy from me to stop me from punching you again in the face. It doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it effective. Okay, works means we can get a sale. I get that, right? Yeah. And there's some people who are really good at cold calling. I call them the devil, or Satan, or whoever you want to do. But I just think there's better ways. Yeah. That it's the bottom of the barrel. Cold calling is the bottom of the barrel. Yes, it can work, but you're at the lowest level of trust, lowest level of relationship, and the highest price sensitivity. Yeah, right? Of course. Which is a horrible spot to be in a B2B, especially. Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with added value or margins or anything.
Nothing. It's who can give me the lowest price. Yeah. There is no loyalty there. So can it work? Yes.
You were a trainer, an inside trainer. I overheard it from your speech. You were selling a bubble wrap stuff. And you were training the salespeople. Was cold calling part of it then? Were you already enlightened with your own message, or were you still believing in cold calling works?
That's where I really started forming the whole idea of, wow, they're knocking on doors. And how many visits you could do a day, and they had their call sheet, and they had to do this many calls. And I'm like, this is a bad use of resources.
Someone says this, you gotta say this.
You
gotta say this.
Leading questions, and every no leads to a yes, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up on how this works.
The Glenn Ross, get the name that's A, B, C.
Always be closing, right? You get a set of steak knives. Second place gets fired. That's how that whole.
So your message would be ABO, always be opening.
Always be opening, and for me, so what we did with that was we changed our salespeople into consultants. They were no longer packaging salespeople, they were breakage consultants. So the biggest pain point, which is everything in B2B, is finding your pain point of your marketplace and saying, okay, look, their biggest concern was their products breaking when they're heading to consumers. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, we go consult and say, this is wrong, this is right. And some of the solutions, for the most part, would be our products. But sometimes they weren't. Yeah. And that was okay. Because they were experts. And we started writing articles and being on boards and doing all these things where you became the expert. To the point where the national sales manager in Canada, a competitor came in to try to quote packaging, a bubble wrap type of thing. And they came in and said, here's our quote, we can beat their price. And he's like, actually, if you want to send that quote to Greg, he takes care of all of our packaging needs. That's the sales guy. So he was telling the competitor, just give your quote to the competitor because he takes care of it. That's how much trust was there. Your job in B2B isn't to sell. Your job in B2B is to build trust first and knowledge within a platform. Yeah. And then the selling happens. I think natural selling is wonderful. I think authentic selling, where you sell on knowledge and in my ability, because if you have passion and you have knowledge, you can kill it in any business there is.
Wow, nice.
So that's what I think about cold calling.
All right, that's a nice answer. I got a few more. Sorry, I got a slide to unlock. I got to double click on the iPad, open my Twitter, and now let's see. Messages here. Customers, here Scott, I got a nice question. Customers don't see silence, but should you be sure about your strategy before starting with social, or is better to just start?
That's a great question where they don't see silos and you know, should you start? Thank you. You always have to have a plan. Going in blindly to social is a bad call. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that's what everybody did. They just started opening accounts and talking. And it was like this, we are the world, let's all hold hands and just talk. It doesn't work that way, especially when you have a larger company that might have a lot of people mentioning you anyways. You need a plan. Anything in business, you need some kind of plan to say, what will we do here? What are we going to do?
So you need a strategy.
You've got to have one. And even you can't even start, but you should never, ever say, we need to be on Twitter. We need to be on Facebook. We need to use LinkedIn. Those are tools. What do you want? Do you want to have a more visibility in the industry? Do you want to listen to your industry or your marketplace? Or do you want to listen to your competitors? Or do you want to talk with people? And you figure that out first. You figure out the benchmark of how will we measure if we're doing it right? And then you say, which tool set should we use? The mistake is when you lead over here and say, we need to tweet. You don't. Nobody needs to tweet. We need to, if that's effective, then that will be the tool we select. And people like me in my industry and social are all like, we gotta tweet and we gotta be on Facebook. And no, strategy, results, because measurement's important. Results, okay, which tool or which tools we use, and that's where the plan is.
Nice. All right, good answer. Continue with what are the most engaging? It's funny. What are the most? It's not funny, but it's a big question. What are the most engaging web experiences you've seen?
You know what?
Engaging.
Well, it's almost like it's a brand mindset or a brand set of people who want to do it. But the most engaging ones are almost the smallest points of engagement. It's the ones companies who see complaints or problems, they jump at and they fix them before they blow up. Where a great example was DKNY, a clothing label, a big one in North America, and somewhat over here as well, where some guy sent a picture on Twitter. And he said, well, I guess this kind of sucks. And he showed his shirt and one of the threads had come out. Like, it doesn't, pick any label you want of clothing. You were angry. And so he just tweeted it. He had 65 followers. But he put the brand name in there, DKNY. So then about 4 hours later, he got a tweet back saying, it's like, oh, hell no. You know, we will not let this happen. You tell us where you got this from, or something. And it was the brand saying unawesome was unacceptable. And so they went through emails, and so he confides in me and says, I didn't think I'd get any resolution because I bought it from a discount store. Like, you know, when all the stuff they just ship down to the clearance stores, they don't sell. It's like there was no refunds. You can't get refunds anyways. The next day, the store manager called him, and the day after that, he got 2 of his shirts in his size from that company, and all started from one tweet from a guy with barely any followers.
So this whole engagement process and transparency forces or stimulates companies to be on top of their reputation and on top of their experience.
The good ones. And you would think that everybody would have the same mindset, that my brand is my responsibility, my reputation is everything. Damn it, they don't. 99% of companies just don't care.
They don't care.
No, and I think their mentality is if it wasn't for the customer, business would be so much easier. Like, they have that mindset of, just shut up, don't talk to us. And I think the good
customers are the greatest interruption of my real work.
They're bane of our existence, that we can't stand them. And I'm like, come on. But
screw them.
Oh, just shut up. And and no sarcasm involved. I really believe a lot of companies do not want to hear from the customer. It's buy or goodbye. Don't say anything, just buy it or get out. And that's it's a good opportunity for the ones who do get it, who do make sense, and do want to talk to people.
Last question, and we got to prepare for the next interview.
All right.
You've been talking to a few people here. You've seen some examples. Were you surprised or struck by some insight or some example that you haven't heard in the States, or that it's something new for you?
You know what? It's almost like the examples, I love the shipping line one that I've got. It's Maersk, I think it is, where shipping line, where an industry where you think nobody will be social. They're shipping containers, mostly in boats across the ocean.
Ooh, container shipping. Wow.
Look out, right? You know, it's like chocolate, but not even close.
Yes.
And what happened was I found out, they're based in Denmark, the guy who runs a social account, it's just him. They have 180,000 likes on Facebook. They have a huge presence on social media. And they have 150,000 employees, 100,000 customer lists.
It's not Nike or it's not Apple.
It's not B2C.
Yeah.
It's not a brand that's consumer friendly.
Yeah.
And people now will see the shipping containers going down the freeway somewhere. They'll take a picture and they'll put it on their Facebook page saying, hey, we saw one of your trucks. They're getting brand recognition in an industry that it doesn't exist.
I never felt that urge, but maybe now I will.
I'm looking for them all over the place now. I couldn't care less about ships, and I want to find them now. Yeah. And the guy's great, and they run it.
Share it with us, please.
The guy is great. He runs it half his time, 20 hours a week, and he's scaled, and he can talk. And if he can do it, I saw it. I phoned him up, and I'm in Toronto. He's in Denmark. We're just talking about social. And he's like, it makes sense. It just makes sense to do it. I'm like, and he's the first in the industry to do it, right? Don't be the last.
Yeah, be the first.
Be the first. Set the trend, and make interacting with customers a smart move. That's it.
Nice. Thank you, Scott.
You're very welcome. Thanks, man. Anytime.